Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Truth. I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Hessen, back with a brand new episode here on The Truth. Back once again with my brother Lucas, and today we are going to be doing the final episode of our Sleeper series. Really, just the entire series as a whole. I mean, obviously, we did Sleepers as well as Avoids. And so we've done 8 episodes, so this will be the eighth, so 16 total from those two. I'm sorry early on, especially in the Avoid component, we kind of fell behind. We were working with a couple different schedules, but now we seem to be back, and we got one more series coming up here on The Truth, and it's going to be our positional preview because, yes, opening day is officially 2 weeks away. So, super exciting about that. A lot of baseball is coming back. So, good news there on all fronts. Spring training is continuing to do its thing as always. I feel like the outfield position, I wouldn't say is the most important position as far as fantasy is concerned, but I feel like a lot of times with outfielders, this is sometimes your moneymaker. These are guys, obviously, that can have power. These are guys that hit for average, stolen bases. Like, I feel like of all the positions, relatively speaking, the outfielder position could be one of the most important ones, especially because each team has three that are out there. Obviously, each position has one, but there's three outfielders that can qualify. And yeah, so enough of glazing outfielders. But anyways, today we're going to be doing sleepers again. Lucas and I will each give you our three outfield sleepers, and so I'll leave you guys with six total. And then before you know it, the show will be done, and we will be looking at position previews for starting pitchers. So without further ado, Lucas, go ahead and give me your first outfielder.
Yeah, first guy for me is a guy who I think is a little bit forgotten is Jung Ho-Lee out of San Francisco. He had a great spring training last year before injury. I know those stats don't really matter, but he sitting over 300, getting a couple bombs, RBIs. Then I think it was his shoulder that he injured, but after he injured his shoulder, he was out for the year, only got 145 at bats, hit 260, two bombs, eight RBIs, two stolen bases, 641 OPS, but again, very small sample size. I look at his numbers in Korea, and they're really exciting. I mean, I think he played 7 seasons there. He hit 340, 407 on base percentage, 900 OPS. And every year except two, he had more walks than strikeouts. He had 45 walks, 40 strikeouts, 59 walks, 47 strikeouts, 62, 37. You get the deal. So he's a guy who has a very good plate discipline. And in the outfield that I think might get, the stigma might be outfielders just hit bombs, not necessarily get on base a lot. Weezy guy's kind of different than that. And ADP really differs on him. ESPN has him at number 17, but some other leagues have him as low as 30. So he's not getting drafted high. I think, again, just because he hasn't proven himself in the majors, but he's only had 145 at bats. Only 12 at bats of spring training, 333, 134 OPS. Again, it doesn't really matter, but it shows that he's healthy. And the question is, can he maintain that health in a San Francisco team that's good, I think, and he'll be playing for that McCovey Cove in right field. I think he's a guy to really look out for. Get that on base numbers up, get some RBIs in there, and he's just going to, I think, provide a lot of value, especially where he's going in the drafts almost by the 30 range, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's an interesting one for myself. I'm going to go with Michael Harris. Now, Michael Harris on the Atlanta Braves, he's only 23 years old, entering his fourth season in the major leagues. I feel like he was one of those guys as a rookie that kind of just jumped out into the scene. Like, a lot of people are super excited about what he was able to do in those 114 games that he played. 19 home runs, 64 RBIs, batted 297. Although he hasn't played in a full 162, dealt with a couple smaller injuries, his numbers have gone down even slowly. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why people are trending away from him, right? 19 to 18 to 16 home runs, not a big jump. Same with 64, 57, and 48 RBIs, not a big jump. The one area of concern that does concern people is 297, 293 average to 264. I think that's a big concern there with Michael Harris because you knew what you were going to get in your first 2 seasons, a guy that was basically going to hit 300, get some home runs and some RBIs, but it's kind of been trending on the downward. Let's be real, though. He is young. I mean, he's still one of those guys that's 23. He's still going to go through some periods where he needs to have better growth and better development. I think this could be a good year and opportunity for that, especially when we look at the position as a whole for the Atlanta Braves, obviously with Ronald Acuna potentially missing some time. This could be a perfect opportunity for Michael Harris to obviously step up to the plate and kind of separate himself as far as his ability to be an effective outfielder for the Atlanta Braves, but effective guy in the lineup. His speed obviously is still there. I know his speeds did drop a little bit, like 20 stolen bags the first 2 years to 10 last year, but he's got that potential, a guy that could really, has overall been pretty consistent. I think the ceiling's through the roof with him, and a guy that can continue to develop and be an effective player for the Braves. And again, currently where he's positioned at 16, I think that's a good bang for your buck, but I wouldn't be surprised by season's end if he's a top 10, even top 7 outfielder, just of the value that he's had so far and the value and then the opportunity for him to continue to grow, to continue to develop, to be one of the better young outfielders the game has to offer. What about your second guy?
Second guy for me is a guy I think that people are a little down on just because he wasn't as good in the minors as people expected. But number 2 pick in 2023, Dylan Cruz. LSU guy, of course, plays for Washington Nationals. Had a taste of big league time last year, 119 at-bats, only hit 218. Oh, wait, that's his minor league. Yeah, 218, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, 12 stolen bases, 640 OPS. But again, only 100 at-bats. Take with that what you will, but I'm a Dylan Cruz believer in the minor leagues. 530 at-bats, 275 average, 18 bombs, 100 RBIs, 30 steals. So he's not going to be someone who just relies on the home run ball, which is all right. He gets a lot of RBIs, which I think RBIs are a little more valuable than home runs because you can get home runs kind of anywhere. But he was really good in college. That's why he was a number 2 overall pick. 58 bombs, 184 RBIs, 152 walks to 146 strikeouts. The thing with me is I think he has a lot of potential in terms of power and steals combination. I think he could be a 30 stolen base guy if he's given that opportunity. And he's slated to be a starting outfielder in Washington for a team that I kind of will be excited to see now that they actually made some signings. I've always kind of been a Nationals guy just in terms of what they do. But ADP has him a little higher than I expected at 18, which is I still think he's a little better than that. I mean, again, he was the number 2 pick for a reason. Played 1.25 years in the minor leagues, and he kind of got shot up to the major league system because Nationals don't have much to offer. But I think Cruz is a guy to really look out for at the end of the draft, especially that he can give you that average and on base numbers as well as RBIs, which I think are really valuable in this day and age in terms of fantasy baseball.
Yeah, I love Dylan Cruz. When I was looking at like overall like players to look at sleepers for the outfield position, Dylan Cruz is one of those guys I was super excited about because Dylan Cruz is obviously a stud. You bring up a good point. Like there is a reason that he's a number 2 pick. To be frank, I think in a lot of drafts he would have been the number 1 pick if it wasn't for a guy named Paul Skeens. Like his talent is through the roof there. Dylan Cruz, I feel like showed some steps last season getting called up, but this is his year to really make that next step and be an effective player for that young Nationals team. So a lot of things to like about Dylan Cruz. I'm going to go in a different position here and kind of a random name. It's going to be Anthony Santander, now newly of the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, for some reason, okay, he is 30 years old, so I get that. He's 20th right now as far as third basemen are concerned. He is going to a new team, sure, but his numbers last season are absolutely insane. First of all, his last 3 seasons, he's been fully healthy. Well, I guess fully healthy is as a good stretch of 152 plus games. It has shown drastic improvements. Last year, I mean, career highs in home runs, 44, RBIs, 102. Average did dink a little bit at 225 or 235, excuse me. But again, I look at those power numbers right there, and that's really exciting. I mean, if you now understand, he probably won't necessarily get the 44 home runs. He could, but a new team, new situation, all that stuff, batting in the lineup. That lineup is still good. Obviously, think of 2 guys, Bo Bichette, who I'm high on, Vladimir Guerrero, still there, barely. There's some good power that the Blue Jays have, and I'm not saying the Blue Jays are going to go compete for a World Series, but they definitely are going to continue to produce runs at a high clip. They're going to be one of those teams that is going to be scoring a lot of runs. Their pitching might suffer, but they're going to score a lot of runs, which is great for fantasy managers. And I think Anthony Santander can be a good piece of that. And again, he is only 30. Again, one of those guys that feels like he's a little older than he is. Yes, 30 is a little bit older, but still qualifies for the outfield position. Wouldn't be surprised if he spent some time at the DH, but will play in the outfield, have some good success as well. And a guy, if I can get him in the 20th best outfielder position, I'm super high on that. I think he easily could be a top 15, top 10 outfielder once again, even with his new home there in Toronto. What about your final guy?
Yeah, final guy for me is kind of a bit of a flyer, but it's Joe Adell of the Angels. Numbers are kind of interesting last year. He had 405 at-bats, 20 bombs, 62 RBIs, 15 steals, but only hit 207 with the 682 OPS. So I was kind of going to tell you there that he is not someone who hits a lot of singles. I mean, he gets 15 doubles, 20 home runs again, but strikeout numbers are concerned. 126 strikeouts to 35 walks. But again, 15 stolen bases. He was caught 10 times. So that kind of shows that maybe he's a little bit of an excited runner, that he'll get a lot of stolen base attempts. But he's like, I mean, he's in right fielders. He's getting drafted like 40. That's not outfielders. That's right fielders. So he's probably getting drafted way down low. I bet a lot of these he's getting undrafted. But I think this is the first time that he's really going to get a bounce back in terms of getting a solid season. I mean, he debuted in 2020, but didn't have a season of more than 260 at bats up to this point. So he got 400 last year. He really got to stick in the big leagues, and now that the Angels are still kind of weird team, just kind of built together with a bunch of randoms, I think he'll get a lot of chances. Again, he was a top 10 pick in 2017. I kind of compare him to Joey Bart in terms of like he fell off, but he's kind of going back on that track back, still with the same team. So I could see a change of scenery be nice. But I think there's a lot going for him. I mean, 1,000 career at bats. The 211 average is just what's really surprising to me because I think he has a lot of good stuff other than trying to like rob home runs when it bounced off his glove over the wall. But that's not in fantasy, so that doesn't matter. But I think he is going to have a really solid year and even just a depth piece, like a good bench bat for days that you have guys that are off on some day just to pick up. Or if you need a bat because of an injured league guy, I don't know if this is someone you'll draft. This is a guy I would look at, especially in the league I'll be in terms of the waiver wire and pickups early on.
What is that league that you'll be in?
Just your league. I gotta submit
Who
my keeper too, but
who won that league last year?
not me.
Can I get a name?
I think you did, but I'm not sure.
Yes, I did win that league. And one of the guys I won that league with, not really, but I will contribute some of my success with, is my third sleeper. And it's Christian Yelich. I mean, what a name, Christian Yelich, because sometimes people think he's a huge sleeper and other times they think he's a big bust. I think, to be fair, when he signed the first contract with Milwaukee, people are like, wow, like, all right, that really hasn't panned out. But it's one of those guys that I understand you can't factor injuries, right? And my philosophy with drafting with baseball, football, whatever sport it is, like, unless there's a guy like a Byron Buxton or like time and year in and year out. And I think honestly, Christian Yelich is starting to get to that point that is consistently going to be injured. It's really hard to draft that because even if guys are not projected to get injured, we can't project injuries. I'm just saying guys that are relatively healthy, you never know what's going to happen, especially with baseball. But Christian Yelich is one of those guys that just seems like every year is dealt with some type of injury. Although, the 2 years before last year, he was pretty healthy, 154 and 155. 144 and 154 games, my gosh, relatively healthy. We've seen the numbers that he could produce. And the first 2 years in Milwaukee were great. 36 home runs, 110 RBIs, a 326 average, 44 home runs, 97 RBIs, and a 329 average. If I'm not mistaken, he did win an MVP in one of those years. I could definitely be wrong about that. And if you didn't win an MVP in one of those years, meant my God, somebody must have been insane. Because anytime you're batting over 320 back-to-back years, 36 plus home runs, 100 plus RBIs, surefire. Last year, played 73 games, 11 home runs, 42 RBIs, had 21 stolen bases in those 73 games, and a 315 average. I know he dealt with a back injury. He got back surgery, but all the reports I've seen from Christian Yelich is that he feels great. And I know everyone says that, especially when they start spring, but that's kind of what I'm basing my opinion off of. He should be good to go, and unless there's a setback or anything for opening day. But again, this is a Brewers team that's one of my favorite teams to watch because they're kind of like the Guardians in my opinion. Like they always get rid of guys, but still find ways to have success, and they still find ways to get to the postseason. So for Christian Yelich, it's one of those guys that he's found a comfortable home in Milwaukee, and I think overall where he's positioned right now is the 33rd best outfielder. I mean, again, you can't. I mean, I know there's 32 names ahead of him technically, but you can't name me 32 guys that you'd rather have than Christian Yelich. And I think easily he's a top 20, top 15. He's already shown that he's a top 5 and overall best player when he's fully healthy and good to go. Even at the stage of his career where he's entering like his 11th or 12th season, he's still 33 years old. I'm not expecting the stolen base numbers to be like Ronald Acuna numbers, but still anywhere from 20 to 35, even 40 if he's healthy and a good production from a guy that never know what you're going to get, but I draft him every year because I love the value that he brings on all assets of his game. Thank you guys for listening to another episode here on The Truth. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you follow The Truth on Twitter, The Truth as one, to stay up to date with the latest information regarding The Truth, including podcast dates, podcast uploads, and other important information you don't want to miss. Make sure you guys also follow The Truth on Instagram and TikTok at the.tt.truth. Are you looking to find a drink that offers peak hydration, raises your energy levels, speeds up your recovery, and keeps your mind sharply focused on memory? Look no further than Acid Rainwater. I'm excited to partner with Bloodline Sports, AZ, and Acid Rainwater, which focuses on peak hydration and productivity, while also maintaining an ecosystem-friendly product. Use code HESSON15, that's HESSON15, for 15% off every purchase. As always, I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Hesson, joined once again by my brother Lucas. Take care and good night.